This is Jonathan Ferguson, the Keeper of Firearms and Artillery at the Royal Armouries Museum in the UK, which houses a collection of thousands of iconic weapons from throughout history. On this week's episode, he's going to be breaking down the eclectic range of weapons in Resident Evil Village.
What makes no sense at all is this upgrade system. The red dot sight on there, the menu informs me, a customizable part for increased power and rate of fire. Two things that a sight definitely can't do for you is increase the power of your shots or the speed of them.
Make sure to subscribe for more videos like this, including Jonathan's thoughts on the weapons of Resident Evil 4 and 7. If there are any other games, guns, or mechanics that you want to see Jonathan break down, let us know in the comment section below. And if you'd like to help out the Royal Armouries Museum and continue to support Jonathan's work, check out the links in the description of this video. Right, over to Jonathan.
So I gather that's your starting pistol, which is interesting. I believe it's the CZ-2075? It's CZ's relatively modern concealed carry sized pistol, which I suppose makes sense as a starting weapon. The main thing of interest isn't so much the weapon as the reload. It's a retention reload. He's keeping the magazine he takes out and swapping to a fresh one. They've chosen a realistic animation for someone who's had some tactical training. That is a reload you would do to preserve the maximum amount of ammunition. If you've got supernatural creatures coming at you, hell for leather, you're not going to retain the magazine gracefully. You're going to get it out of the gun, get another mag in, keep shooting until there's nothing about to kill you, then pick up the magazines that you've discarded, whether or not they have rounds in them. Just a word on ammunition. This being set where it is and the sort of creatures that you're fighting, I'm a bit disappointed that I've not seen anything in the way of silver bullets, which, as everyone knows, are for shooting werewolves. Silver bullets were attempted against the beast of Gévaudan in France, which is not, I don't think was ever thought to be a werewolf, it was just like a giant beast. So the folklore fiction nut in me is a bit disappointed that we don't have any silver bullets in this game. A comfortable, fully automatic? Alright, insta-pause on that one. Right, so we've got M1911, so we've actually got a correct designation for the Colt 1911 derived pistol this time, which in Resident Evil 7 we didn't. This is a straight up Colt 1911 government model pistol, and they called it a 1911. But then the description says a comfortable, fully automatic handgun. I think that's a contradiction in terms. I don't think any fully automatic handgun is comfortable. I don't know if we're looking at an early build or something, but that description definitely said the M1911 was fully automatic, and I was about to complain about how fully automatic 1911s do exist, but not factory made. They're all converted, built for gangsters, that sort of thing. But then, as depicted in that clip, bearing in mind I haven't played this game yet, it is semi-automatic, so I'm not sure what I'm missing there. This is an odd implementation of the Scorpion machine pistol, submachine gun, whatever you want to call it. Machine pistol, submachine gun, at least by one definition. The one in the game that I was shown is semi-automatic only, as is this one. This is a commercially available, for civilians, pistol. The really striking thing about that weapon was the stock, because the stock on that was like no Scorpion stock that I've ever seen, and as far as I know, does not exist. It's a sort of pseudo-Dragunov-inspired wood and steel fixed buttstock. Now, the whole point of the Scorpion is that it is compact. So it's kind of strange to not see the Scorpion used as, you know, a sort of one-handed blaze-away machine pistol, and instead to see it used as a sort of pistol-caliber carbine. I did not expect to see one of these in a Resident Evil game, although I don't know why not, thinking about it. It's not a franchise known for its slavish adherence to realism. Not that the Gyrojet isn't realistic, the Gyrojet is real. It does exist. We also have a fired round. You may or may not be able to see that it has little rocket vents in the base, because these are miniature rockets. This is basically a real-life Warhammer 40k bolter pistol because it's a rocket pistol. It's got a really weird loading system as well. So as you see in the game, there's no magazine in the grip. Well, there is, but it's not reloadable. To open it up, I'm not sure I saw this in the animation, but you actually have to press this catch on the right side and then open up the rear of the pistol. It's not a slide because it doesn't reciprocate. And then the hammer strikes the nose of the cartridge, knocks it backwards onto this striker, which hits the primer in the base, much like a conventional cartridge, and then the rocket exhaust starts jetting out of those holes in the base of the round, and it slowly makes its way out the barrel. And that's reflected in the firing animation, where there's a perceptible delay between firing it and the projectile hitting the target, and a sort of explosive projectile effect when it hits something. In real life, that's not the case. I don't think they made any payload-bearing ammunition for this, so it's just a really slow, not very good bullet. The weapon is, yet again, the Winchester 870, and we don't have to guess because the in-game name is W870, which is probably just as well because this version is so disguised with bits that it might have tripped me up, frankly, at first. Over the top, clamped onto what I believe was originally a mount for a side saddle shotgun shell holder, is almost like a shroud that gives you a top Picatinny rail and a heat shield out the front, and it totally changes the outline of the gun. So the 870 is all over the world, so very plausible to come across it, and increasingly people do like to play dress up with their guns, so you might find one with some bits and bobs on it, or of course there's an in-game armourer again for this game, so it's possible that he's dressed it up, or you're customizing it clearly as you go along. This is quite a curious bit of legally different naming here. We've got SYG-12, SIG-12. You stumble over your words. It's almost like Saiga-12, which is what this actually is, or Saiga. It's a 12-gauge semi-automatic variant of the Kalashnikov system. Quite popular around the world, increasingly popular actually, and certainly in Eastern Europe. So this actually in some ways makes more sense than some other appearances of the Saiga. What makes no sense at all is this upgrade system, and this is the first time that this has become really apparent to me, in that the red dot sight on there, the menu informs me, a customizable part for increased power and rate of fire. Two things that a sight definitely can't do for you is increase the power of your shots or the speed of them. It doesn't look to me as though the sight is even on. I think you'd see some residual glow from the reticle on the glass in that low light condition, so it's like a sight that gives you increased power and rate of fire that doesn't function as a sight. I think of the guns I've seen from this game, this, what they're calling M1851 Wolfsbane is easily my favourite. It fits the setting so well, and it's a really nice example of an in-game decorated gun. Embellished guns in video games are often really over the top, and they don't look like a real engraved, decorated, damascened firearm. But this is much more like it, and maybe it's just my taste. But the black and gold, it's still over the top. Don't get me wrong, but it fits quite nicely. Although I don't really understand the M1851 designation, because looking at it in the character's hand and in the proportions of it, it really looks much more like one of these, a Dragoon, the Colt Dragoon, which predates the 1851 Navy, which is what the designation of this is alluding to. It is really a mashup of different Colts. If I had to lay money, I'd say this is meant to be front half Dragoon / Navy, but octagonal barrel, back half 1872. Yeah, I quite like it. I'm not complaining per se. Nice to see a specific model represented, but something that's just a Colt without being a Colt, and it's meant to be like a one-off magical weapon. I think it works really well. So the old Wildy Magnum, which, if I remember rightly, in Resident Evil 7 had a hint of the Automag 3 about it, but primarily the Wildy, makes a comeback here. I assume it's the standard, or one of the standard Magnums, not an unlockable, but that one is doing some serious damage there, so that's got to be fully upgraded or whatever. I like the Dirty Harry style exaggerated recoil animation, although it's interesting how, if you want to fire faster, he brings it down quicker. Not completely implausible. Some people prefer to sort of ride the recoil and then let it settle back down into the sights. So if you're trying to engage targets more quickly, you would just muscle it back down. Yeah, it was an interesting choice for Resident Evil 7, and it's an interesting choice here. Quite an eclectic selection of firearms so far, and the sniper rifle's no exception. This is the French FR F2, which is still, I believe, the current French military sniper rifle in 7.62 NATO. One of those weapons in the game that is really quite close to the real-life gun. And this is, in fact, the correct scope reticle for the FR F2. You can find it online, which is probably what the developers did. And so they have actually used the correct scope reticle for this rifle, which it's not a first because it has been done before, but that's normally the preserve of more sort of milsim type or tactical shooters. It's relatively rare to get a faithfully represented scope view. Another legally different name, WCX, which is a mirrored version of the MCX from Sig Sauer, without having the real thing to compare to hand. It looks like there are too many lumps and bumps on it, so it might be deliberately a bit different, or maybe it's just the finish that's throwing me off. The basic configuration is correct, and it's become a very popular tactical 5.56 rifle, so yeah, it fits the setting. Role-wise, it sort of takes the place of the Bison from Resident Evil 7, and both of them seem to operate a bit more like a generic video game machine gun to me. I might be being a bit unfair there. The rate of fire seems a little slow for something like the MCX. Yeah, it's something a bit different, and it's fascinating over time to see trends as to what's a cool tactical rifle change. And for a long time it was AR-15s all day long, and things like SIGs are now getting a look in games, just like they are in the real world. We've got another Kalashnikov derivative, or rather variants. This is some sort of short-barreled AK, generically known as a Krinkov, although that's a legitimate term for the AKS-74U, or a Draco. It's like based on a available parts kit that comes in and is built up as a short-barreled rifle or a pistol. We've got accessories on there. I don't know to what extent those are customizable or whether they come like that in this case, but what intrigued / amused me were the rubber bands that are on the gun. So we've got one around the pressure switch on the foregrip, which looks like it might be there to keep the light on, and then there's another one inexplicably wrapped around the buffer tube bit, or there's not a buffer tube in the gun, on the buttstock. Maybe that's a spare, I don't know. Always handy to have elastic bands around, I suppose. There's an M79 in the game. This one is highly decorated, and again I think they've done quite a nice job with the decorated firearms of making them look like something that might exist in reality, even though it wouldn't exist in reality because no one in their right minds would do that to an M79. But in terms of the execution, the modelling and the texturing, a nice job. A weird nerdy quirk that you watch these videos for: when he breaks open the gun, and pulls out the empty case, the rifling looks really funky and goes all the way to the back of the barrel, which means you'd have to have grooves cut in the cartridge case, and I don't know why you would do that. So firearms have chambers, and the chambers are not rifled. They are sometimes fluted so that propellant gases can be used to help extract the case, but that's not what we're seeing here. What we're seeing here is someone who's not understood how rifling works, unfortunately. Yeah, bit of an odd one, but overall the modelling of that weapon was good.
Is Moses Daddy alright? Not bad. What's wrong, Ethan?
What an interesting contraption. This is basically the ride-on lawnmower from hell, and you've got a trusty chainsaw, which I think is to effect some sort of guard with, or to try to. You've got an M2 50 caliber, 50 Browning machine gun on the right-hand side, which reloads itself magically. And then what it calls the cannon is, I can't quite see where that sits relative to you as the driver, but there is actually like what looks to be an SPG-9 or similar recoilless weapon mounted on this thing. So again, that is magically reloaded on its own. In reality, you'd need at least 2 guys hanging off the back of this, trying not to get taken out by the back blast of the recoilless round. But it's very, very inventive. You can actually see at one point, fitted to the rear of the M2 machine gun is actually a solenoid style firing mechanism. So they've bothered to think about how you're actually firing that with a remote trigger, essentially. So an electrical signal is sent to a switch, and it's the switch which fires the actual gun. An interesting bit of attention to detail in an otherwise completely insane agglomeration of weapons. Here at the Royal Armouries, we are happy to be open once again at Leeds, as well as our Fort Nelson site. Do come and pay us a visit if you're able. If you've not and you'd like to support us another way, there are links in the description for that. We've also got our own series of short videos on objects from the collection that might interest you over on the Royal Armouries channel. Otherwise, we'll see you again next time. Thanks for watching.